I found a pair of heels under our bed. They weren't hers. They were too small, too worn, too cheap. And my wife, Rachel, she never wore anything that wasn't name brand or new. At first, I thought maybe they belonged to a friend. Maybe her sister had visited and left them by mistake. But I already knew the truth. Deep down, I knew. That was just the beginning. Rachel and I had been married for 6 years. We had a house in the suburbs, a dog, 2 SUVs, matching monogrammed towels, all the things that were supposed to mean happy. I worked in commercial construction, managing big projects. She was in real estate, beautiful, charming, always knowing exactly what to say. But something had changed in her. She started staying out late, blaming clients, and open houses. Her phone was always face down. She laughed less. Touched me less. Her eyes stopped meeting mine at the dinner table. I told myself I was being paranoid, that I was overthinking, that I was just tired. Until the heels. That night, after she fell asleep, I opened her laptop. I didn't want to. I really didn't. But I had to. There was a folder on her desktop labeled bills. Inside were screenshots of wire transfers. Thousands of dollars. Weekly payments. Sent from an account I didn't recognize to one with her name. And the sender's name? Eric K. Thompson. I didn't know any Eric K. Thompson. But apparently my wife did. There were also photos. Not explicit but intimate. Taken in hotel lobbies. At bars. A rooftop dinner. Her in a tight red dress I'd never seen before, leaning in too close to a man I'd never met. The next morning I made her coffee. Kissed her cheek. Pretended nothing had changed. But everything had. For the next 2 weeks I played the role of the oblivious husband. I woke up next to her. I made her breakfast. I kissed her goodbye before she left for work, knowing damn well she wasn't going to any listing. Every moment felt like I was walking through fire, each word I spoke a lie I had to swallow. I kept telling myself I needed more proof. Something undeniable. Something I could throw in her face when the time came. It wasn't just about catching her. It was about understanding why. One night I followed her. She told me she had a networking dinner with other agents downtown. I nodded, smiled, told her to have fun, my voice barely holding together. I waited 10 minutes, then got in my truck and drove after her. She didn't go downtown. She went to a boutique hotel just outside the city, one of those sleek, glass-heavy places with expensive cocktails and valet parking. I parked across the street and watched her meet him. Eric. He was older. Maybe in his late 40s. Graying temples. Expensive suit. Confident. The kind of man who walked like the world owed him something and had already paid in advance. They hugged like they'd done it 100 times before. Her face lit up. She touched his chest as she laughed, the way she used to touch me when we were first dating. They disappeared into the hotel without looking back. I sat there for 2 hours. I couldn't move. Couldn't breathe. My hands were shaking so bad I nearly dropped my keys when I finally forced myself to drive home. That night, I didn't sleep. I lay in our bed, staring at the ceiling, listening to the clock tick like a goddamn metronome of betrayal. She came home past midnight. Hair tousled. Perfume stronger than usual, like she'd reapplied it in the car. She slipped under the covers, curled up next to me, whispered, "Good night, baby," like everything was normal. I didn't answer. I couldn't. Something inside me had cracked. And I knew she was never really coming back from wherever she'd gone. I didn't confront her right away. I couldn't. I needed time. Not to collect evidence, I had more than enough, but to figure out who I was without her. When you've built your whole identity around someone, their betrayal isn't just heartbreak. It's erasure. It's waking up and realizing the life you thought you had never actually existed. And in that void, in that silence between what you knew and what you now understood, there's only pain. I started sleeping in the guest room. Told her I was having back issues from work. She nodded, barely listening, too busy scrolling through her phone. She didn't care. That hurt more than anything, not the cheating, not the lies, but the indifference. Like I was just another piece of furniture she had grown tired of. Then I found the second phone. It was hidden in the back of her closet, inside a shoebox from a pair of designer boots. I don't even know what made me look, maybe instinct, maybe desperation, but once I saw it, everything made sense. It was prepaid, burner style. No password. Dozens of messages, all from Eric. Some sweet, some graphic. All damning. "Miss you already. When are you going to tell him? You looked so good tonight. I swear I'm addicted to you. But the one that broke me? I love how easy this is. He still has no idea." I put the phone down and sat on the floor. My whole body went numb. I didn't cry. I couldn't. There was just this cold, hollow weight inside my chest, pressing down so hard it felt like I couldn't breathe. I had loved this woman with everything I had. Worked double shifts to support her real estate dreams. Skipped vacations to save for a better house. I built our life. And she was tearing it down in motel beds and late-night texts. That night, I looked her in the eyes and asked, "Are you happy?" She paused, caught off guard. "What do you mean?" "I mean this. Us. Your life." She smiled a little too quickly, like she knew a test was coming and didn't want to fail. "Of course I am. Why would you even ask that?" I just nodded. Didn't push. But deep inside, I knew something irreversible had shifted. She wasn't just cheating on me. She was already gone. It all started unraveling faster after that. Like once I acknowledged the truth even silently, it gave reality permission to collapse around me. She became more careless, or maybe just more comfortable in her double life. Late nights became overnights. Work trips to nearby cities for conferences she never used to attend. She stopped wearing her wedding ring, said it was too tight, though I knew damn well it wasn't. And still, I said nothing. I don't know why. Maybe I was scared of the finality of it. Maybe part of me still hoped she'd come back, not physically, but emotionally. That she'd break down, confess, cry, beg me to forgive her. That she'd choose us again. But she didn't. Instead, she grew colder. Sharper. Everything became a chore to her, conversation, dinner, even eye contact. And then one morning, out of nowhere, she looked at me across the kitchen table and said, "We need to talk." My stomach turned to ice. She didn't cry. Didn't stutter. She was calm, collected, like she was reading from a script she'd rehearsed 100 times. She said she hadn't been happy for a long time. That she felt trapped in our marriage. That she needed space to find herself. I asked if there was someone else. She hesitated for a split second, just enough for me to know the answer, and said, "That's not important right now." But it was. It was everything. She said she was going to stay at her sister's place for a while. That she'd figure things out. I didn't argue. Didn't beg. Didn't even ask her to stay. I just nodded. Because what else could I do? You can't force someone to love you. You can't make them choose you when they've already chosen someone else. She packed a single suitcase. Took her toiletries, her favorite jacket, and the dog's favorite blanket as if she was planning to come back for the rest once I was gone or broken enough not to care. As she walked out the door, she didn't look back. Not once. And in that moment, I realized the truth I hadn't wanted to face. She had been gone for a long, long time. Now it was just official. The silence after she left was deafening. At first, it was almost a relief. No more fake smiles, no more lies whispered across dinner plates, no more pretending everything was okay. But that relief quickly gave way to a hollow ache. The house felt like a mausoleum. Every corner echoed with memories I no longer trusted. I would walk into the kitchen and remember her laughing as she made pancakes. I'd sit on the couch and see her curled up next to me during movie nights. But those memories weren't real anymore. They felt like fragments from a dream that had turned into a nightmare the moment I opened my eyes. I didn't tell anyone at first. Not my family, not my coworkers, not even my closest friends. There's a special kind of shame that comes with betrayal, not just because of what happened, but because you didn't see it coming. Or worse, because you did and still let it happen. I blamed myself. For being too trusting. Too busy. Too blind. I went over every moment in our marriage, trying to find the crack where she first slipped away. But there's no single moment. It's never that clean. Sometimes people don't fall out of love, they just get bored. Or greedy. Or both. After a week, I finally told my brother. We sat on his porch drinking beers, the sun setting behind the trees. I kept it simple. Rachel left. She was seeing someone else. He didn't say anything at first. Just nodded, then reached over and gripped my shoulder like he was trying to hold me together. That simple gesture nearly broke me. I hadn't cried until then. But right there, in the fading light, with my brother beside me, I finally let it out. Not just for her betrayal, but for the years I'd wasted trying to love someone who saw me as disposable. She didn't call. Didn't text. Not even to check on the dog. And that silence, that complete lack of remorse or guilt, it made things clear. She wasn't struggling with her decision. She wasn't grieving the end of our marriage. She had already moved on, mentally and emotionally, long before she ever walked out that door. One night, I got drunk enough to call her. She didn't pick up. I didn't leave a message. What would I even say? I hope he's worth it? Do you ever think about what you threw away? No. She wouldn't care. And even if she did, it wouldn't change a thing. That was the night I stopped hoping she'd come back. That was the night I started trying to figure out how I could. Healing didn't come easy. It wasn't some clean, upward journey where every day got a little better. Some mornings I woke up and felt like I could breathe again, like maybe I'd finally turned a corner. But other days I collapsed. Not physically, but emotionally, I'd sit on the edge of the bed, still expecting her to walk into the room. My brain played cruel tricks on me. I'd smell her perfume in the hallway, hear her voice in the hum of the refrigerator. Grief, I learned, doesn't just live in your heart. It lives in your bones, in the spaces between silence. I started going to therapy. Something I never thought I'd do. I used to think therapy was for people who couldn't handle life. Turns out it's for people who've been crushed by it and still want to stand. My therapist told me I was mourning more than a marriage. I was mourning the version of myself that had believed in it. And she was right. I missed him too, the man who believed love could conquer anything, who thought loyalty guaranteed safety. She called me eventually. 3 weeks after leaving. I was at the grocery store, standing in front of the frozen pizza section when her name flashed across my screen. My heart didn't race. It didn't sink. It just paused, like it was waiting to see what I would do. I let it ring. Picked it up on the last second. "Hey," she said, like nothing had happened. I didn't respond. She cleared her throat. "Just checking in. Wanted to see how you're doing." That made me laugh. A bitter, humorless sound. She was checking in? Like I was the one who'd vanished without warning? Like I was the one who burned down our life? "I'm fine," I said. "You don't need to call." There was silence. Then, in a voice soft enough to almost sound sincere, she said, "I didn't mean for it to happen like this." But she had. Of course she had. People like her don't trip into affairs. They plan them. They schedule them between meetings and dinner reservations. I wanted to scream that. But I didn't. I just said, "Goodbye, Rachel," and ended the call. I stood there for a long time, surrounded by cold air and shelves of frozen dinners, realizing that was the first time I'd said her name in weeks. And it would probably be the last. After that call, something in me finally shifted. Not in a dramatic, movie-ending kind of way. There was no moment of sudden triumph or clarity. It was quieter than that. Subtler. I went home that night, sat on the couch where we used to watch TV together, and for the first time since she left, I didn't feel like the walls were closing in. The silence wasn't oppressive anymore, it was mine. The house wasn't a graveyard of our memories, it was a blank slate. And that realization didn't heal me all at once, but it planted a seed. I started changing little things. Took down the wedding photos. Boxed up her clothes and dropped them off at her sister's without saying a word. I painted the bedroom a darker shade, something that felt more like me than us. I got rid of the floral bedspread she picked out and bought something simple, navy blue, clean lines. I wasn't trying to erase her. I was just reclaiming space. My space. People started asking questions. Friends. Coworkers. Even my mom. I kept it brief. We split up. She met someone else. Most of them didn't know what to say. Some offered the usual lines, "You'll find someone better, time heals everything, you deserve more." But there was one friend, a guy I hadn't seen in years, who just nodded and said, "Yeah, that shit breaks you." It was the most honest response I got from anyone. And he was right. It did break me. But slowly, I began to understand that being broken wasn't the end of the story. There's something raw and powerful about starting over when you didn't choose to. About building a life not because you're ready, but because staying still would kill you. I started taking longer walks with the dog. I stopped skipping meals. I picked up the guitar again, something I hadn't touched in years because Rachel said it was too loud when she was trying to relax. I didn't feel okay yet. Not even close. But I felt something. And that was more than I could say a month ago. She sent one more message. A long one. Apologizing. Justifying. Telling me she never wanted to hurt me. That she hoped we could someday be friends. I didn't reply. Because I finally understood. Some things don't deserve closure. Some things deserve distance. It's strange how grief morphs over time. At first, it felt like a fire, hot, wild, consuming everything in its path. But eventually, it cooled. Not into peace, not yet, but into something more manageable. Like embers you can walk beside without getting burned. I stopped waking up with that crushing weight on my chest. The urge to check her social media, to wonder where she was or who she was with, it faded. Not because I had answers, but because I stopped needing them. There's freedom in letting go of questions that only poison you. One afternoon, I ran into her by accident. It was at a home improvement store of all places. I was in the paint aisle, thumbing through swatches for the guest bathroom when I heard her voice behind me. That same soft, lilting tone I used to know better than my own. I turned and there she was, standing with a shopping cart, alone, looking almost exactly the same and yet completely unfamiliar. She looked at me and froze. For a second, we just stared at each other, both unsure who would speak first. "Hey," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. I nodded. "Hey." There was an awkward pause. She looked down at the cart like it might give her something to say. Then she looked back at me, smiled nervously, and said, "You look good." I didn't know how to respond to that. It felt like such a cheap thing to say, considering everything. But instead of sarcasm or bitterness, all I said was thanks. She stood there a moment longer like she was waiting for me to invite a conversation. I didn't. She finally said, "I'm really sorry, for how everything went down." I looked her in the eyes and said the only true thing I could, "I know." And then I walked away. Not out of anger. Not out of pride. But because there was nothing else left to say. We weren't those people anymore. We weren't anything anymore. And somehow that didn't hurt the way I thought it would. That night, I sat on my porch with a cold beer, watching the sky turn orange and gold. For the first time since she left, I didn't feel broken. I felt, still, like the world had finally stopped spinning just long enough for me to catch my breath. And in that quiet, I realized something. Survival wasn't the end of my story. It was just the beginning of a better one. I started to rebuild not just my house, but my identity. Piece by piece. It's funny how much of who we are gets wrapped up in someone else, in their habits, their moods, their needs. For so long, I was Rachel's husband. That was my title, my role, my script. But now I had to figure out who I was when I wasn't standing next to her. I didn't chase love. I didn't swipe through apps or look for validation. I just focused on myself, and that was harder than I expected. Because when the noise dies down and it's just you, no distractions, no lies, you have to face the truth about what you allowed. What you ignored. What you gave away to keep something that was already gone. I started journaling. At first, it felt stupid, like talking to a wall. But eventually, the words poured out like poison being drained from a wound. I wrote about everything, the day we met, the way she used to smile when she was tipsy, the first time I felt her pulling away, the moment I found the burner phone. The rage. The sorrow. The deep, paralyzing sense of failure. And then slowly, I started writing about me, not just who I had been, but who I wanted to become. I reconnected with old friends. The kind of guys I hadn't seen in years because married life had pulled me into its own orbit. We went fishing. We watched football. We got drunk and told stupid stories about our 20s. And every time I felt a little bit more like myself. Like I was waking up after a long, drugged sleep. One of them, Tyler, said something that stuck with me. We were sitting around a campfire, passing a bottle between us, when he said, "You know what? You didn't lose her. She lost you. And one day she'll feel it. Maybe. Maybe not. But that wasn't the point. The point was, I didn't feel lost anymore. Not every minute. Not every day. And that was progress. I started making plans. Not revenge, not rebound, just real, adult plans. A road trip. A new career certification I'd put off for years. A gym membership. Little things that had nothing to do with her. Things that were mine. And each step forward, each choice made without her shadow hanging over me felt like an act of defiance. Like I was saying, you broke me, but you don't get to keep me. And damn, that felt good. It's been over a year now. Sometimes I still think about her, not with longing, not with hatred, but with a quiet curiosity. I wonder if she's happy. If she ever looks back and regrets what she did. If the man she left me for turned out to be everything she thought he was, or if he eventually disappointed her the way she disappointed me. But then I catch myself. I stop those thoughts before they spiral because the truth is, it doesn't matter. Her happiness or lack of it has nothing to do with mine anymore. I've found peace in places I never expected. Early mornings. Empty roads. The smell of sawdust in my workshop. Cooking dinner for myself and actually enjoying the solitude. I don't flinch when I walk past our old anniversary spot. I don't dread the sound of her name. I've let go of the need for closure, for justice, for some cosmic apology that'll never come. Because healing isn't about what you get from the person who hurt you, it's about what you finally give yourself. And what I gave myself was grace. I forgave myself for not seeing it sooner. For trying so hard to fix something she'd already decided to abandon. For loving someone who didn't deserve the loyalty I gave so freely. That wasn't weakness. That was honor. And I carry that now, not as a scar, but as a reminder of what I'm capable of even in the face of betrayal. People talk a lot about moving on like it's some grand, dramatic step. Like one day you just wake up and everything is behind you. But it's not like that. Moving on is quiet. It's a series of tiny choices. Choosing not to look her up. Choosing to leave the past where it is. Choosing to invest in yourself not out of spite, but out of love. Real love? The kind you give yourself when no one else will. So here's what I know now. Sometimes the person you love the most is the one who hurts you the deepest. But that doesn't mean you stop loving. It doesn't mean you close your heart or stop trusting. It just means you get smarter, stronger, wiser. And if you do it right, betrayal doesn't break you, it rebuilds you. I'm not who I was before she left. I'm better. And that's the story she'll never get to be a part of.